Welcome to Kermode Uncut, where it's time for part 2 of my top 10 films of the year so far. If you saw part 1, you'll know that numbers 10 to number 6 were Fan, Love and Friendship, Evolution, Tale of Tales, and High Rise. So now numbers 5 to number 1. It was a really difficult task this year because there were so many great films released. It was really hard to whittle this list down. And there are great films that I haven't managed to get into this top 10. I think that's really encouraging.
この世には目に見えない魔法の輪がある。輪には内側と外側があって、私は外側の人間。でもそんなのはどうでもいいの。
In at number 5, When Marnie Was There. I thought this was a wonderful, heartbreaking, tender and really inspirational animation, based of course on the novel by Joan G. Robinson, but transferred to Japan, taking the heart and soul of that story and turning it into something really special. It's directed by Hiromasa Yonebayashi, who of course made Arrietty, which is an adaptation of The Borrowers. The real heartbreak about this is that apparently it's a swan song for Studio Ghibli. It's the end of that incredible lineage. One really hoped that it would carry on forever, but what a wonderful parting shot. When Marnie Was There is, for me, one of their very best works. Now, at number 4 in my rundown of the top 10 films of the year so far, a real treat, Mustang, a wonderful film directed by Deniz Gamze Erguvan. It's a French film, but it's about 5 Turkish sisters who are effectively imprisoned in a house by their uncle, who's turned the house into a wife factory. The film boasts brilliant performances from the young cast, a fantastic score by Warren Ellis, and it was nominated for the Best Foreign Language Film Oscar. Now, I have to say, this year, that category was extraordinarily strong, as you'll see as we count down the rest of my top 10.
Plant is real, but not trees. Mountains are too big to be real. Good morning, lamb. Good morning, egg snake. TV persons are flat and made of colors. But me and you are real.
So, into the top 3, and at number 3, Room, screenwriter Emma Donohue's brilliant adaptation of her allegedly unfilmable novel, wonderfully helmed by Lenny Abrahamson, and with a superb score by Stephen Rennicks, which we've talked about before on the blog. The thing I love about this film is that it looks from the outside like the most unbearable subject matter, a mother and her son horribly trapped, and yet the film is about so much more. One of the difficulties of selling the movie was having to explain to audiences that it wasn't perhaps the film they expected. I thought it was completely overwhelming. A fantastic central performance by Brie Larson, who quite rightly won the Oscar for Best Performance by an Actress. I've seen Room a few times now, and every time it gets better. I think it's a fantastic work, and it says something about the quality of films released in the UK so far this year, that it's not at number 1, because in many other years it would have been. Return! On to the top 2, and I have to say I really wrestled with this because actually either of these 2 films could have been the top of the charts, but at number 2, Son of Saul, Laszlo Nemesh's extraordinary drama set in Auschwitz in 1944, which won the Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film. The real triumph of Son of Saul is that it takes the most difficult subject matter, the Holocaust, and somehow manages to find a visual language which is appropriate to deal with that subject. I spoke before here on the blog about how Claude Lanzmann, who always had a problem with visual representations of the Holocaust, said that the film did a really good job of being modest and being honest and actually representing what it was like for the Sonderkommando. It's not an easy watch, nor should it be. In fact, it's an overwhelming film that completely overpowers you and you need an awfully long time to process it. But I have nothing but admiration for its intention, for its construction, for its moral backbone. I think it's a really important work, and I think it was a really deserving winner of that Oscar.
Dañara David, no Kermode Uncut, we go by Tanya, the number Unubicate.
Inako igual ne Krimuru, Nakuanam, Nekuabenimuru, Munda Kajum.
Which brings me to the number one spot. Now, as I said before, there's so many good films released this year. This was very, very hard to call. But for me, the very best film I have seen released in UK cinemas so far this year is Che Guevara's Embrace of the Serpent. It's a really complex story which blends fact and fiction, earthy detail and fantastical mythology. It's a story which basically takes Herzog's Fitzcarraldo or perhaps Coppola's Apocalypse Now and inverts those themes that we're familiar with. It sees a journey from the point of view of the indigenous population, of the Amazon tribes people, into whose world come our white explorers. The first time I saw it, I had no idea what to expect at all. I'd just seen the poster, which was very, very enigmatic, but I found myself completely drawn into this world. It's a film which really finds new ways of expressing complex ideas. Plus, of course, it's just fantastic to watch. It does that thing that cinema does at its very best. It takes you and transports you. Believe me, Embrace of the Serpent is one of those films that takes you somewhere completely different, that reminds you why it is that we all keep going to the cinema. So there we go, my rundown of the top 10 films released in the UK so far this year. At number 10, Fan. Number 9, Love and Friendship. At 8, Evolution. At 7, Tale of Tales. At 6, High Rise. 5, When Marnie Was There. Number 4, Mustang. At 3, Room. At 2, Son of Saul. And at the number 1 spot, Embrace of the Serpent. Now, looking at that list, of course, I'm aware of the things that aren't in it. I mean, where, for example, is Green Room? Such a wonderful movie. What about Florence Foster Jenkins, which I loved? Also, released in July, Notes on Blindness, which you will probably know is one of my favourite films of the year and will definitely feature in my top 10 of the year come the end of the year. However, the next Kermode Uncut blog, counting down numbers 5 to number 1 of the worst films released in the UK from January to June 2016.